I walked into Dr. Patricia Morrison's office on a gray Tuesday morning in February, expecting nothing more than my annual executive physical. At 62, I'd built my company from a single duplex into one of the city's most respected real estate development firms. I'd survived prostate cancer 5 years ago, lost my wife Margaret to breast cancer 3 years back, and thought I'd seen enough doctors and hospitals to last a lifetime. Dr. Morrison had been my physician for 15 years. I trusted her completely. So when she asked me to sit down with that particular expression on her face, the one doctors wear when they're about to deliver news you don't want to hear, my first thought was that the cancer had returned. "Robert, the blood work came back," she said, sliding a folder across her desk. "Everything looks good overall. Your cholesterol is down. Blood pressure is excellent for your age, but there's something we need to discuss." I felt my chest tighten. "Is it back? Cancer?" "No, nothing like that." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Robert, do you remember the complications you had after your surgery in 2020? The additional procedures we had to perform?" "Of course," I said. The memory was bitter. It was hell recovering from that. "One of the consequences of those complications," she continued, her voice steady but soft, "is that you're infertile. Completely and permanently. There's no possibility of you fathering children naturally. It's been documented in your file for years." I nodded slowly, not understanding why she was bringing this up. Margaret and I had already raised our son, Michael. At my age, more children weren't even on my radar. "I understand that, Patricia. Michael's 34 now. I'm not exactly planning on starting over." She leaned forward, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "Robert, you listed Jessica as your emergency contact on the intake form. She's your wife?" "Yes," I said, a faint smile touching my lips despite the strange tone. "We got married 4 months ago." "Why?" Dr. Morrison's expression shifted to something between profound concern and quiet alarm. "Robert, she called yesterday to reschedule today's appointment. She mentioned she wanted to be here for the results because of her pregnancy. She said she's 14 weeks along." The words didn't just hang in the air. They crashed into me, a physical blow to the solar plexus. I felt my mouth go completely dry. That must be a misunderstanding. Jessica couldn't have said that." "I have the message recorded," Dr. Morrison said gently but firmly. "She specifically stated that she's pregnant and that you're the father. She wanted to know if your medications would affect the baby." I stood up, my legs suddenly unsteady, the rich, polished wood of the desk feeling alien under my fingertips. There has to be some mistake. Dr. Morrison's face was grave, her eyes filled with a pity that made my stomach churn. "Robert," she said softly, "there's no mistake." And in that single, silent moment, in the sterile calm of that doctor's office, the entire foundation of my new life shattered into 1,000 suspicious pieces. The drive home was a blur of rain-smeared windshields and roaring, hollow silence in my head. I wasn't driving a car. I was piloting a coffin of my own naivety. Jessica, my Jessica, 38 years old, with a laugh that used to make me forget I was a widower with achy joints and board meetings. We'd met at a charity gala for the Cancer Foundation I'd set up in Margaret's name. She was vibrant, beautiful, an art consultant with a seemingly effortless grace. She'd approached me not about business, but about Margaret. She'd read about her, admired her philanthropy. She spoke of loss with a tenderness that resonated with my own grief. It felt like a sign. The courtship was a whirlwind. My son, Michael, was cautious. "Dad, it's fast," he'd say, his lawyer's mind always analyzing. "Just make sure the prenup is ironclad." I'd waved him off. I wasn't a fool. The prenup was severe. In the event of a divorce within 10 years, she would receive a generous but fixed settlement, comfortable for life, but a fraction of my estate. The bulk would remain with the company and go to Michael and his family. I thought it was more than fair. I thought I was protecting what Margaret and I had built. But now, a pregnancy? At 14 weeks? We'd been married for 4 months. The math was possible on the surface. But the biology was a locked door, and Dr. Morrison had just handed me the key to see it was sealed shut. I pulled into the circular driveway of our home, a sleek glass and steel testament to my success. Her success now, too. I saw her through the floor-to-ceiling window, dancing lightly in the living room, one hand resting on her still flat stomach, headphones on. She was glowing. The performance was perfect. How do you walk into your own home and feel like a spy in enemy territory? Every detail, once a source of pride, now seemed like evidence. The modern art she'd curated on the walls, was it a sign of her cultivated taste, or a calculated display to mirror my world? The way she'd encouraged me to update my will shortly after the wedding, to simplify things for Michael, just in case. Had that been a concern, or a chess move? I took a deep breath, plastering on a mask I didn't know I owned. The mask of Robert, the blissfully expectant older husband. I had to know. I had to see it for myself. "Darling, you're home early," she chirped, pulling off her headphones and floating over to kiss my cheek. Her perfume, usually a comfort, felt cloying. How was the physical? All good, I hope. "All clear," I said, my voice thankfully steady. I cupped her face, looking into her dazzling green eyes. "Patricia gave me a clean bill of health. Said I'm fit as a fiddle." The lie tasted like ash. "Oh, thank goodness," she breathed, leaning into my touch. "I've been so worried. With the baby coming, I need you in top form." There it was, the opening. I let my hand drop to her abdomen. "Speaking of which, shouldn't we be making it official? Seeing a proper obstetrician? Getting a scan? I want to see our little miracle." A flicker. So fast I would have missed it if I wasn't hunting for it. A microsecond of something in her eyes. Surprise? Panic? Before it was washed away by a wave of practiced tears. "Oh, Robert, you mean it? You're really happy?" "Over the moon," I whispered. "The biggest lie of my life." I already have an appointment," she said, recovering swiftly. "Tomorrow, actually, at Women's Wellness. Dr. Evans. I was going to surprise you with the first ultrasound picture." Women's Wellness. A private, discreet, and notoriously expensive clinic, the kind of place where records were closely guarded. Of course. "Then let's not wait," I said, smiling. "I'll clear my schedule. We'll go together. I wouldn't miss it for the world." Her smile was brilliant, but it didn't reach those careful, calculating eyes. "It's a date." That night, as she slept soundly beside me, I lay awake in the dark, the pieces clicking into a horrifying picture. The rushed marriage, the questions about my health, the pregnancy announcement timed after my physical, where she presumed she'd learn about any conditions that could threaten my life and her inheritance. She thought I didn't know I was infertile. She'd gotten pregnant by someone else and was presenting me with an heir that would completely shatter the 10-year clause of the prenup. A child, my child on paper, would entitle the mother to a massive portion of my estate immediately upon my death. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a corporate takeover of my entire life, and I had just signed up for a front row seat to the fraud. The waiting room at Women's Wellness smelled of lavender and antiseptic. Soft classical music did nothing to calm the storm raging inside me. Jessica clung to my arm, the picture of excited anticipation. Every touch felt like a brand. "Mr. and Mrs. Thorne? Dr. Evans will see you now." The ultrasound room was dim. The technician, a cheerful woman named Linda, had Jessica lie down. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was the moment of truth. Would she fake a scan? Was the whole pregnancy a lie? But then, the grainy black and white image flickered to life on the monitor. And there it was. A tiny, bean-shaped form. A rapid, fluttering heartbeat filled the room. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. A sound that should have been the most beautiful in the world, but to me, it sounded like a countdown to my own destruction. "There's your baby," Linda said brightly. "Perfect size for 14 weeks. Strong heartbeat. Everything looks wonderful." Jessica squeezed my hand, tears streaming down her face. "See, darling? Our baby." I stared at the screen, at that little cluster of cells that was being used as a weapon against me. I felt a surreal detachment. "Amazing," I heard myself say. "Just amazing." I asked for pictures. I behaved exactly like a proud father-to-be. But my eyes were scanning the room, the paperwork, the technician's badge. Information. I needed leverage. The plan began to form in my mind, cold and precise. I couldn't confront her. Not yet. That would only make her careful, make her hide her tracks. I had to let her believe her scheme was working perfectly. I had to become the ultimate supporting actor in her play, while I worked backstage to dismantle the entire theater. The first step was surveillance. Not the crude kind. I was a developer. I understood systems, security, and digital footprints. I called in a favor from an old friend, a man named Leo, who used to do cybersecurity for my firm before he retired to a remote cabin. He was a ghost, and he owed me. "Leo," I said over a secure line, "I need a complete shadow. Phones, emails, financials. And I need a DNA test without anyone knowing, least of all her." "You got it, Chief," came the gruff reply. No questions asked. That was Leo. Life became a double game. Publicly, I was Robert Thorne, doting husband, shopping for cribs, discussing names. I even threw a small, intimate announcement dinner for a few close friends. Jessica beamed, basking in the applause. I gave a speech about second chances and late life blessings, watching her drink in every word. The lie was so deep, it had its own ecosystem. Privately, I was a general preparing for war. Leo's reports started coming in, encrypted, detailed. Jessica's phone records showed frequent, lengthy calls to a number registered to a David Reed. A quick search revealed him, a personal trainer at the exclusive Aqua Vitalis gym where Jessica was a member. He was 29, handsome in a bland, sculpted way. Social media showed a man who loved fast cars and designer labels, a lifestyle well beyond a trainer's salary. Then, the financial trail. Unexplained withdrawals from Jessica's personal account, the generous monthly allowance I provided, transfers to an offshore account in the Caymans, smaller, regular payments to a private mailbox service. She was stashing money, preparing an exit route. But the most damning evidence came from Leo's most delicate operation. He'd managed to intercept a discarded tissue from Jessica's purse and obtained a sample from the ultrasound clinic's hazardous waste. The gel wipe they'd used on her stomach, which contained fetal cells. He sent them to a private lab he trusted. The results arrived on a day I was supposedly at a site inspection. I sat in my private study at the office, the door locked. The email from Leo was just 2 words. No match. The child was not mine. Scientifically, legally, morally, it was David Reed's. The rage was a white-hot sheet, threatening to burn away my sanity. But then, a colder, more powerful force took over. Purpose. She hadn't just betrayed my heart. She had tried to architect a fraud that would steal my legacy, dishonor Margaret's memory, and make a mockery of my son's birthright. She had weaponized my grief and my hope. The game was no longer about discovery. It was about consequences. And I would ensure they were so devastating, so complete, that she would understand the true weight of what she had tried to steal. Revenge is not a dish best served cold. It's a blueprint. It requires surveying the land, understanding the materials, and constructing the collapse so that the target believes, until the very last second, that they are building their own palace. My blueprint had 3 pillars: financial, social, and legal. Pillar 1, financial. I couldn't simply cut off her allowance. That would alert her. Instead, I began to enrich the trap. I sold a non-controlling minor stake in one of my smaller development projects, a project I knew from confidential reports was about to be devalued due to an upcoming zoning change. I sold it to a shell company, which was, of course, secretly owned by me. I then gifted the proceeds to Jessica as a nest egg for our child's future. It was a significant sum, $2 million. Her eyes lit up with a greed she couldn't fully conceal. I watched her, over the next week, funnel almost all of it into that Cayman Islands account. She was hoarding what she thought was her prize, not realizing it was marked money, destined to evaporate. Pillar 2, social. I began, subtly, to reshape our social circle. I reignited friendships with couples who were old school, who valued loyalty and integrity. At dinners, I'd steer conversations toward stories of betrayal in business, watching Jessica squirm ever so slightly. I'd praise Margaret's memory more publicly, highlighting her honesty and strength. I was quietly building a jury of her peers, preparing them to see her for what she was when the truth came out. Pillar 3, legal. This was Michael's domain. I brought him into my confidence. It was the hardest conversation of my life, harder than telling him his mother was gone. His initial shock turned to a fury that mirrored my own. The lawyer in him took over. We went to a former district attorney, a razor-sharp woman named Evelyn Holt, who now handled high-stakes civil litigation. We laid out the case: fraudulent paternity, intent to commit inheritance fraud, breach of the prenuptial agreement in spirit, and planned action. Evelyn's eyes hardened. "We can't criminalize this easily," she said. "But we can bury her in civil court. We can sue for the return of every asset, for punitive damages, and for a declaratory judgment that the child is not a legal heir." The plan was set. But I needed one more thing: undeniable, public proof of the affair. Leo provided the location: a secluded rental cabin near the lake, booked under David Reed's name for the upcoming weekend. Jessica had told me she was going on a spa retreat with a girlfriend for some pre-baby relaxation. This was my moment. I didn't go alone. I brought a private investigator with a long-lens camera and, crucially, I brought my most discreet, trustworthy business partner, Charles. I needed a witness who was unimpeachable in our social world. We waited in the trees as dusk fell. The rental car arrived. David got out, then went around to open the passenger door. Jessica emerged, laughing. letting him pull her into a kiss that was anything but platonic. They went inside, and through the large, uncurtained window, we saw the familiar, intimate dance of a couple completely at ease. The camera shutter clicked quietly in the stillness. Charles put a heavy hand on my shoulder. "I'm so sorry, Robert." I felt nothing but a cold, clean clarity. "Don't be," I said, my eyes fixed on the window. Now we have everything. The stage for the final act was our 4th wedding anniversary dinner. Jessica had planned an extravagant evening at the Opal, the city's most sought-after restaurant. She'd hired a string quartet, ordered her favorite champagne. She was radiant in a shimmering emerald gown, her baby bump now a prominent, proud curve. She thought she was celebrating her impending victory. She was actually attending her own execution. I played my part. I gave a toast, speaking of our unexpected journey and the surprises life brings. I saw her preen, mistaking my words for sentimental weakness. As dessert was served, I gently touched my glass again. "Darling, there's actually one more surprise. A gift." Her eyes sparkled with avarice. "Robert, you shouldn't have." "This one isn't just from me," I said, my voice dropping, losing its warm timbre. "It's from our past, our present, and our future." I nodded to the maitre d'. The doors to the private dining room opened, and in walked the people who would shatter her world. First, Michael, his face is like stone. Then, Evelyn Holt, my attorney, carrying a simple folder. And finally, Charles, my business partner and witness, his expression grave. Jessica's smile froze, then cracked. What is this? Robert? "This is the truth, Jessica," I said, my voice now cold and clear, carrying across the silent room. The quartet had stopped playing. "Please, everyone, sit." Evelyn Holt took the lead. She placed the folder on the table. "Mrs. Thorne, my name is Evelyn Holt. I represent Mr. Thorne. We are in possession of irrefutable evidence that you have engaged in a systematic fraud against my client. This includes, but is not limited to, adultery with one David Reed, and the attempt to pass off Mr. Reed's biological child as Mr. Thorne's heir in order to defraud him of a substantial portion of his estate." Jessica turned white. "That's a lie. Robert, what is this?" I didn't look at her. I looked at Charles. He spoke calmly. "I saw you, Jessica. Last weekend at the Cedar Lake cabin, with David. You weren't at a spa." I then slid the ultrasound photo across the table to her. Next to it, I placed the DNA test results, the lines clearly showing excluded as biological father. Finally, I placed a single photograph from the cabin, showing their kiss. "The doctor told me I was infertile, Jessica," I said, my voice barely a whisper. Yet it echoed in the dead quiet. "The day before you announced your pregnancy, you never asked about my physical results. You never followed up. Because you already had the result you wanted. You thought I was healthy, with a long life ahead to provide for your child. You never imagined my health report would contain the one fact that destroyed your entire scheme." She stared at the evidence, her breath coming in short, sharp gasps. The social mask she'd worn for years crumbled into raw, unvarnished terror. You set me up," she hissed. "No," I corrected her quietly. "You set the trap. I just showed you the walls." I gestured to Evelyn. Evelyn opened the folder. "Based on the breach of your prenuptial agreement's core covenant of good faith and the evidence of fraud, we are initiating proceedings. You will be served tomorrow. The lawsuit seeks the return of all assets gifted during the marriage, including the $2 million currently in your Cayman Islands account, which, I should inform you, has been frozen as of 5 p.m. today. It also seeks a judgment declaring you have no spousal support rights and that the unborn child has no claim to Robert Thorne's estate. Jessica looked like a cornered animal. "You can't do this. I'm your wife. I'm carrying a child." "You are carrying David Reed's child," Michael said, speaking for the first time, his voice thick with contempt. "And as of this moment, you are no one's wife. My father will be filing for an annulment." I stood up, looking down at the woman who had tried to dismantle my life. I felt no rage, only a vast, empty sadness. "The car will take you to a hotel for the night. Your belongings will be sent tomorrow. Do not attempt to contact me. All communication will go through Ms. Holt." I turned and walked out of the room, Michael and Charles beside me. I didn't look back. Behind me, I heard no dramatic sob, no scream, just the deafening silence of a house of cards that had finally finished falling. The legal process was swift and merciless. With Evelyn Holt at the helm, it was a masterclass in strategic pressure. The annulment was granted on grounds of fraud. The civil suit was settled out of court to avoid a lengthy, public spectacle, a spectacle she knew she would lose catastrophically. The terms were total. Jessica signed away any claim to my estate. She returned the jewelry, the art she'd purchased with my funds. The frozen $2 million was reclaimed. She was left with only the clothes she'd owned before we met, and a small, separate account she'd funded early on. A pittance compared to the kingdom she'd aimed for. David Reed, when confronted with a lawsuit for conspiracy to commit fraud and the imminent loss of his job and reputation, fled. He left the city, and from what Leo heard, he left the country. He wanted no part of the financial ruin or the responsibility of a child. Jessica gave birth to a baby boy 7 months after that dinner. I heard through the grapevine that she named him David Jr. She moved to a smaller city, living off the remnants of her savings. The social world we inhabited closed its doors to her permanently. She was a ghost in the world she'd tried to conquer. For me, the victory was hollow at first. I'd won, but I'd lost the last years of my life to a beautiful lie. The trust I had in people was shattered. I spent months in my empty, quiet house, surrounded by memories of both Margaret and the ghost of the future Jessica had pretended to offer. But slowly, the lessons began to crystallize. This wasn't just a story of betrayal. It was a story about the dangers of loneliness, of wanting to believe in a new beginning so badly that you ignore the warning signs blinking in bright red. I had been a successful businessman, but I had been an emotional novice, rushing to fill a void. I found my healing in 2 places. First, in strengthening my relationship with Michael and his young family. I became a devoted grandfather, their time with me filled with a genuine love that no contract could ever guarantee. Second, I poured my energy and a substantial part of my wealth into the Cancer Foundation in Margaret's name. Real, tangible good. Helping others navigate their own storms gave my own experience a purpose. One afternoon, about a year after everything ended, I was at the Foundation's annual fundraiser. A young couple approached me. The man had survived testicular cancer and was grappling with the news that he too was infertile. His wife held his hand, her eyes bright with unshed tears. They asked me for advice on moving forward. I looked at them, at their shared pain and their united front. And I told them the truth. The foundation of a life isn't blood, I said. It's true. It's the person who stands with you in the doctor's office, no matter what the news is. Build on that rock. Everything else is just scenery. So what did I discover? I discovered that the most dangerous prisons aren't made of stone and steel. They are built from our own desperate hopes, gilded by silver-tongued liars. I discovered that a legal document is only as strong as the character of the person signing it. And I discovered that true justice isn't about vengeance. It's about restoration. Restoring what was stolen, your peace, your legacy, your truth. To anyone out there feeling that gnawing suspicion in the pit of your stomach, that tiny voice whispering that something is too good to be true, listen to it. Do not let loneliness or hope silence your intuition. Verify, protect yourself, and remember, the greatest revenge you can ever have is to live a full, authentic, and happy life after they've done their worst. To build something beautiful from the rubble they left behind. They thought they were scripting my downfall. But in the end, I was the one who wrote the final chapter. And it ended not with their victory, but with my peace.